Hello, good morning, and welcome to Thoughts and Updates for this week. It is not so sunny Scotland on the day in which the clocks went forward, and we're now into British summertime, which no doubt will come with its customary lack of sunshine and indeed much rain. It's been a great week this week, once again. In terms of writing, looking over the last week, the triumph of Amanda Serrano in boxing, last night's card where Willie Hutchison didn't manage to get the Commonwealth and British title being stopped in the fifth round, and also Dillian White, who had two proteges up fighting Eric Pfeiffer and Chris Congo, who didn't get wins, but he did in terms of his rematch with Alexander Povetkin and is back in the mix. So interesting times in terms of boxing. In terms of the heavyweight division, of course, that performance was in front of 500 fans in Gibraltar, and I can certainly see Gibraltar being a place after the success of last night. We'll get more and more events out there at the moment. Dubai seems to be the place because MTK Global are based there. The MTK are doing their level best to bring boxing back to the masses, and of course next week it'll be Carl Frampton's attempt to become the only Irish three-weight world champion. In terms of Scottish Football Supporters Association stuff this week, I've got a couple of columns from last week that will be stuck up on my Twitter and on my Facebook as today progresses. But what I've been looking at is today the Colts idea of bringing the Colts into the lower divisions, and also looking at the crisis, if it can be called that. Hearts 13 points ahead, and yet they are in meltdown, having been kicked out by Brora Rangers from the Cup competition last weekend. So a little bit of that, and yesterday they also lost the Queen of the South for the first time in umpty years. So that's what this week is going to be all about. And I've got The Budge Won't Budge from her little place, the Tiny Castle, as part of my scurrilous attack, if it can be called that, upon all things Scottish football. For Ringside Report, the Ansakula stuff from last week and Harry Dunn has started a little bit of a kickback from people, and I've got an email to respond to, and indeed some Twitter stuff to respond to as well, which I will do today. It's an interesting kind of thing because Anne Sekulis, of course, is responsible for the death of Harry Dunn, having driven on the wrong side of the road, where in the UK she was had been resident, landed not long before she drove her car, which ended up with the death of a young man. And then she fled the United Kingdom. She didn't flee the scene, she fled the United Kingdom, claiming diplomatic immunity, and is refusing to come back for trial, which has led to a bit of a diplomatic spat between the two countries, and indeed the family of Harry Dunn not receiving any kind of justice. No reviews this week, though. I have been listening to an audio play by the Royal Lyceum called Angela, written by Matt Ravenhill. It's got Pam Ferris and Toby Jones in it. What a headline that would be if both of them actually performed on stage at the Lyceum, but we're left with audio plays at the moment until such times as the theatres open. I've also got Gridiron's documentary of a play that nearly happened last year to watch, as well as Jamie Rea, his piece for Solar Bear. So there's a lot of stuff that I'm looking forward very much this week to get my teeth in and have a look at. Perhaps not review, but at least get an opportunity to see and hear some genuine theatre. So things this week that have happened, of course, there's been the announcement that Alex Salmond has formed the BBC Alba party. My good old mate Alistair Carmichael has suggested that there's a bit of cash out there for people who are going to spend this year trying to teach people how to pronounce Alba, being the Gaelic word for Scotland. It's kind of mixed emotions when it comes to Mr. Salmond, though he was found not guilty in a court of law, which allows him to state quite clearly he's not guilty of whatever it was he was accused. I think it was one not proven version. What we got was a man who was able to say that he had behaved inappropriately, and I think any man who is of a similar age to myself and a little bit above would have to say at some point in their life they have behaved inappropriately. and they regret how they behave towards certain individuals, and I certainly am one of them. I think that to be the head of a political party is a difficult one for quite a lot of people, because Salmond represents the past, and Nicola Sturgeon represents the present. Who represents the future is up for debate, because it depends on whether or not the ultimate aim of both Salmond and Nicola Sturgeon is independence in Scotland. I'm in favour of independence in Scotland, absolutely. I'm quite happy that there is another political party and it enjoys the debate. My concern and worry of all nationalists, everybody who believes in independence in Scotland, is that it's going to split the nationalist vote in key areas, so that the list system that we have for voting for people is going to be slightly confused. I know that there are other political parties in the Scottish election who believe in independence, like Solidarity, the Scottish Socialist Party, the Greens and so on. So it's not as if you've added somebody into the mix who's necessarily going to be offering an odd alternative. But the issue here, of course, is, well, the problem is that the Scottish National Party are singularly identified with independence. A vote for the SNP means quite clearly that what you're voting for is independence. Voting for any of the other parties, you don't vote for independence if you vote Green, you don't vote for independence if you vote the Scottish Socialist Party, so that you may add your voice to the wish and the desire to become independent, but your principal reasons for voting for these parties are not necessarily anything to do with independence, or to do with the environment, to do with your own socialist leaning. Having a political party founded by Alex Salmond, who is a giant on the Scottish political stage, no matter what you think personally of his conduct, no matter what you think personally of him, brings into focus that there's a sharp divide within the Scottish National Party, which is hardly surprising. If you have a single issue that unites us, look at UKIP, and not that I am suggesting the SNP is like UKIP, but UKIP had a single issue that united them, yet a broad church, the Brexit Party, which it became, had a former Communist Party member standing alongside Anne Widdecombe, who was a radical right-wing Conservative. So to be a broad church, the Scottish National Party will have people who have conservative leanings, will have people who have strong socialist leanings, and have many people in between. Of course, you want no transphobia, you want no racism, you want none of that nonsense that's prevalent within the far right. But the fact of the matter is that any nationalist cause is likely to attract people who are going to have leanings towards that type of worldview. And the Scottish National Party have done a great deal to try and rid itself of that, but at the ballot box, it's unlikely not to be at least one or two people who are going to vote because they are nationalists in the wrong manner. Will they now transfer their vote to Alex Salmond? Should we want their vote in the first place anyway? Well, in a democracy, you have to accept that there are alternate points of view, there are alternate ways of expressing political opinion. And much though I may abhor the idea of there being racists, transphobes, homophobes, anti-Semites in any political party, I know that they exist, I've met them. So if they all transfer into Alex Salmond's party, that's one thing they can do without. But they won't be alone. There are going to be people who do not necessarily agree with the way in which Nicola Sturgeon has conducted herself, that we are now 13 years into a Scottish National Party government in Holyrood and Edinburgh, and we still don't have independence. We've won election after election after election, and we don't have independence, and there is a frustration within the nationalist movement that we're not going to get it if we don't act decisively. And Alex Salmond's party is, in essence, one of the reasons that have come from that frustration. One of the things that have been that frustration itself manifesting itself in practical efforts being made to capture it. And it is those people who are likely to leave the SNP, not in droves I don't think, but certainly lend their vote to another voice who are frustrated at the lack of progress. I'm a member of the SNP. I don't agree with everything that the SNP have done. In fact, I probably am radically at the wrong side of their views on education. And given that it is principally my area of work, even of expertise, I think that that causes me a lot of not sleepless nights, but problems. I don't believe they've got it right, but I will give up that in order to achieve the ultimate aim, which in my view is independence, to allow us to put together an education policy and indeed system that is the envy of the world. And we can do it, but we can't do it once we're in the United Kingdom. I don't believe, and I think that we've seen that, because the kowtowing to teachers that John Swinney did when he became the Education Secretary, followed by the debacle we've had over examinations last year, and the way in which further education has not been improved, in my opinion, since the amalgamation of the 40 odd colleges into 13, means that I struggle to keep myself tethered. But what I will always do is vote for the single issue that's going to unite us. And when John Swinney compromised, as he did at the beginning, and the efforts that have been made in order to keep people on side, demonstrates to me that until we get independence, we're not going to get all of this sorted out. So here's hoping that this happens. And Alex Salmond's party will be tested on the 6th of May this year when the Scottish elections happen. We are not that far away from that time. What I hope happens is that there is once again a majority vote for independence, and that increases the pressure on Westminster to approve a Section 30 order which allows us to have yet another referendum. That's just the beginning. What I think has to come thereafter is the means and ways in which we are able to become a nation again. So, till next week, bye for now.